The tournament is only hours away. Do you have enough betting knowledge in your bag to cash tickets on Sunday? Join our golf betting experts as they expose value for bettors by analyzing the course, the field, and the matchups. Improve your handicapping with long shots. Ladies and gentlemen, now on the tee, Brady Kannon, Matt Youmans, and Wes Reynolds.
Welcome back to Long Shots, the world's #1 golf betting show on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. It is indeed the welcome back show as we've been away for 12 weeks, but now the PGA Tour is upon us once again. I'm Brady Kannon along with Matt Youmans and Wes Reynolds, Nick Henyon and Triv McKenzie at the controls. Gentlemen, good to see you. It's been quite a while that we've been in the studio together, and here we are with the PGA Tour back in action. Are you fired up?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's great to be back. I will say the last 10 weeks or so have kind of felt like, Wes, a colonoscopy. I don't know if you've had one of those recently.
Not that I would understand what you're speaking about there, Matt.
Yeah, it's been tough not to have golf this summer. Brady, we've had a chance, you and I, to get out in the course, play quite a bit, play more than usual. But it's been, really disappointing not to have a tour event that we can talk about and bet each week for the past 2.5 months.
Well, speaking of a tour event, the last competitive round was the first round of the Players' Championship on March the 12th. Hideki Matsuyama shot a 63 and took a 2-shot lead before the plug was pulled on the event. Now, a revised tour schedule was released shortly thereafter, and here we are with the Charles Schwab Challenge taking place at Colonial Country Club, Wes.
Yeah, and really what we have, and the field is not going to be confirmed until 5 p.m. Eastern time this upcoming Friday, but thus far we've got 15 of the top 20 players in the official world golf rankings committed, including the entire top 5, which Colonial usually has a very good field, but not an overwhelming field. But this time, these guys are eager to get back out there, and it's going to be an interesting handicap just to see, because some of these guys may have been able to practice or get out on the course more, depending on where they live, depending on the individual jurisdictions and regulations in terms of that. And some guys probably haven't had a lot of rounds or haven't had a lot of practice time. So really going to be an interesting handicap because you've got an elite field, but you've also got guys that are maybe a little down the board that have a lot of experience and a lot of course form at Colonial.
Yeah, we've seen guys with less experience, less star-studded guys get to the winner's circle at Colonial, but now the field will be much more difficult this go-around. We did have 2 events for charity for COVID relief, Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson, narrowly getting the victory over Ricky Fowler and Matthew Wolff at Seminole. A week later, Tiger Woods and Peyton Manning bettered Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson in the match part 2. Matt, I know you watched both of these. Did you take anything away? Did you enjoy those exhibitions?
The first one really did not. I thought that was just a brutal betting beat if you played the underdog in the Ricky Fowler, Matthew Wolff match, because DJ and Rory did not win a hole after number 6, and then they won a gimmick playoff on a closest to the pin. And I was fortunate I did not bet that, but if I had, I probably would have played the dog, and it would have been a bad beat, and I would have been, ticked off about it all week. But I did really enjoy the second one, the match with Phil and Tiger and the 2 quarterbacks, partly because you could see the quarterbacks hack around a little bit and say, hey, they're just like us sometimes on the course. But I thought Tiger played really, really well, and it didn't surprise me because Brady, that's sort of his home course. He's got more than one home course, but that's essentially his backyard. I thought Tiger looked like he was in really good form, and I think the layoff might have done him a lot of good.
Wes, your thoughts on the 2 exhibition matches?
Yeah, I preferred the second one a little bit. I mean, it's always tough to be the guinea pig and be the first thing to be televised when you come back. But I think, look, we were a little bit unsure of the format and the fact that the team that won the event didn't even win a hole on the back 9 or didn't win a skin until the end. So it was a different format. It was really just interesting and kind of bizarre to see guys carrying their own bags like it's
wearing shorts.
A junior golf event. Yeah. And also, but I think of what I saw, at least in the first match, the fact that they didn't have their caddies out there with them you saw a lot of makeable putts missed, and how valuable these caddies are at reading greens and reading putts. And you saw these guys, I think, miss a lot of 5-6 footers that are usually makeable that they would more often than not make in tournaments that they missed in this match. But in terms of the second event, I enjoyed it more because guys got to show their personalities a little bit. I'm going to be interested to see how golf, from just a television standpoint, how they produce this, because they had those guys mic'd up. And I think a lot of the people really liked it and said, we need more of this in regular golf events, within reason. I mean, you're not going to have Charles Barkley as a commentator for like a U.S. Open or something, but for like a regular event on CBS, just a standard tour event, I could see him being an on-course reporter, have a little fun with it.
This is Long Shots, the world's #1 golf betting show on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. I'm Brady Kannon, along with Wes Reynolds and Matt Youmans, and it is now time to bring in our guest. It is the member guest segment here as a part of the Long Shots program. Jeff Sherman joins us from the Westgate for the welcome back edition of Long Shots. He's a good friend of the network. You can hear him with Mitch and Polly quite often on Follow the Money. He's the vice president of risk management at the Westgate Superbook and also does the golf odds for the Superbook. You can follow him on Twitter at Golf Odds. Jeff, good to have you on the program. Welcome back indeed. Are you excited for PGA Tour golf to return as we are?
Yeah, I really can't wait for this. I've been doing some Cactus Tour and Outlaw Tour in the meantime, but really ramping up for the PGA Tour next week.
Jeff, we've had the Scottsdale Open, the Outlaw Tour, some alternate tours going on, a couple of COVID charity exhibitions. But as far as the PGA Tour, how have you been preparing and what have you been working on during this time off?
Well, I'm waiting for the field to get finalized this Friday. And, the one thing you have to try to find out is who might be putting in some more time than others. Who's got the families that they have responsibilities for, that type of thing for the first tournament back. One of the things that you can follow along with is some of these guys that are playing next week on the PGA Tour have played, like you mentioned, the Meridos Samaritan Fund Invitational. Scotty Scheffler, he did really well in the two events that they had. So some of these guys that have had some tournament play under their belt.
Jeff, now that the tour is returning, in terms of how you're making your odds here, the guys that are the top world-ranked guys and the top 5 are actually in next week's field in Colonial. You're obviously going to put them at the top, but are you kind of tightening the prices on maybe some of the guys that aren't ranked as high but have great course form, like at Colonial, where you're kind of in that clash with recent form against course form?
Well, that's what I'll be doing the first 2 weeks. When you talk about Colonial and then they go to the Heritage, those are two courses that really are lent on course form. So even during the regular season, not during this time off, I would put more of an emphasis on course form. So I'll have even more of an emphasis on the course form next week when I'm compiling these odds.
Jeff, I wanted to ask you about the numbers you've been putting up here for the past couple months. I think it's fascinating. You talked about the Outlaw and the Cactus Tours, and Brady and I were in Scottsdale last week playing golf. There's some great courses in that area, but they've had these independent tournaments, and you put up numbers on about 160 players in this tournament. I'd just like you to explain a little bit how you go about that. And the fascinating aspect is you had 2 winners at 500-1 odds, including Zach Smith in that first tournament about a month ago.
Yeah, Zach Smith won the Scottsdale Open, which is an independent one, not associated with a tour of 500-1. And then Barry Enright, the former Major League pitcher, came back the next week on the Outlaw Tour. He won at 500-1. But the things I would look for is they've been playing these tours for some time this year, so you can get some course form. Earlier in the season, they played some of these courses, and then current form for the players involved. And then the ones I don't have form for, you look at their world rankings and anything else they might be involved in, and just kind of compile it that way. And the same way you do the PGA Tour is the names that might attract some wagering support. So even though you've had long shots coming in on it, we didn't have any tickets on Zach Smith, Barry Enright, even Trasamar at 125-1 last week. So it's the guys at the top that have been commanding the betting support, and conversely to that, the Cactus Tour, those are smaller events on the women's side, and it's been favorites every week on that, not long shots. Mm-hmm. So you have a dichotomy of who's winning these tournaments, but the Cactus Tour had some familiar LPGA golfers involved. So you'd see really, really short prices, less than 2-1 on that. But it's really combining their strength, their power rating, what they've been doing amongst players that you're not too familiar with, but you'll scrap together some information on.
That was outstanding. You put that up. That's the name of this show, Long Shots, and you had a couple of them hit there this summer. Like you said, 500-1 each, and then you had a 125-1 shot. I was curious, how did the Superbook, or how do you think books in Vegas in general fared? I can't remember I think you took action on both of them, both charity golf events, the one involving DJ, Rory, and Fowler and Wolf, and the second one, obviously, with Tiger and Phil. I know you had up. What was the handle like? What was the betting interest like? Because we hadn't seen live golf on TV in a couple of months.
Yeah, we did well to both matches. We got underdog support in both cases. There was a lot less bet on the first one, the skins match, and that format didn't lend itself to doing so many propositions and having people's attention. You know, when we did the in-play, the highest either team was minus 250. Now, when you got to the match with the Mickelson, Brady, Tiger, Manning, and you have the traditional match play, I did 33 propositions on that one as opposed to 8 on the first driving relief match. We had about 3 times the handle on the Tiger Phil match, and that one had a traditional in-play price like you could have seen on some PGA Tour events when someone has a large lead, where Tiger and Manning got as high as minus 2,500, Mickelson, Brady plus 1,500. Even though that got condensed to 1 up, Tiger and Manning ended up winning. So there were points in it that it got exceedingly high.
Jeff Sherman is our guest. He's the Vice President of Risk Management at the Westgate Superbook. Jeff, Matt alluded to it earlier, a very difficult task, putting up 150 players, odds on each one of them for these minor tours, the Cactus Tour, the Outlaw Tour, what have you, some of these events that have been going on during the quarantine. It's got to be a difficult task, I would think, to do the same for Colonial, because Wes mentioned you've got some, real stars in the field that have maybe even never played this event before, and then you've got a lot of journeyman tour players that have been very successful at this venue. You couple that with the time off that everyone's had. Is this, I think it's tough for a bettor. Is it also tough for you as the odds maker?
Yeah, we're in the same boat, and that's what we're going to be doing, is putting up somewhat, you might see some traditional prices on some of the guys that don't fall into the categories that you just mentioned. But, the first couple of weeks, it might be like we saw on the Outlaw Tour, where you might have some longer shots winning, but people weren't supporting them because they had the uncertainty going along with them. So, things will get fine-tuned quickly, and I think you'll see some adjustments in the next couple of weeks. But the first week back after an unprecedented layoff, it's interesting about when you look at the other sports and you see the time off between seasons. I'm used to the 1 month off in December in golf, and it's not even really 1 month. And here we've had almost 3 months with the PGA Tour. So this has been the most excessive time that I've had between tournaments. And it's going to take some adapting to.
Jeff, any consideration or adjustments you might have made in the early prices here, just based on, quite honestly, where the players live? Guys that live in Florida probably are going to be on the course more than guys that have lived in California, based on each individual jurisdiction's regulations around that sort of thing. I know our buddy Will Gray from Golf Channel wrote a column and spoke with Xander Schauffele, who lives out in Southern California. He said he didn't touch a club for a few weeks.
Yeah, I didn't take that aspect into account, but some of these guys that have been playing, like I mentioned, Scheffler and Hovland down in Texas, and have had some competition reps under their belt, that's definitely going to be factored into my pricing. But as far as those other concerns about where they're at, we'll put up the odds in the range that we think is good, and we'll see how the action comes in. If we're not getting any, we'll go ahead and raise them up, and if we're getting some support due to that, then it'll get adjusted downward.
All right, Jeff, I talked about Tiger Woods playing in his backyard in the match 2. Jordan Spieth kind of doing the same thing here in the Colonial. And we've talked a lot, on this show and other shows, Jeff, about Spieth turning into a head case here in the past couple of years, and he can't get his game straight. Is that a guy you would look at in a tournament like this at the Colonial? Maybe a long layoff will do him some good. Who knows? It may not help at all, but sometimes after a long layoff, that's exactly what a guy needs to get straightened out. If you looked at the Colonial last year, Spieth actually came out on fire, 65 in the first round. He was in the hunt. He finished in I believe a tie for 8th. But he fired a 72 in the final round and kind of flopped. But he was in the hunt the entire time. I looked at Jordan Spieth's odds in the PGA coming up here in a couple months at 50-1. Who could have fathomed 2 years ago that we would see Spieth at 50-1 in that neighborhood? But nobody believes in him right now. Is there any reason, Jeff, to maybe believe in him or take a shot at him at some longer odds in the PGA, or even a little shorter odds, more reasonable odds next week in the Colonial?
See, I don't think so at this time, because earlier in the season that we had seen, he just couldn't put 4 rounds together, and he'd come out and do well in the first round, and he'd say, okay, maybe Spieth's going to be back, and then it'd fall apart in the 4th round. And he just didn't have that consistency or show you what you needed to do to win the tournament. And he had some positions where he finished well, but that one round really got to him. And now, even after this long layoff, when they're playing next week down in Texas, he's from there, but this field is going to be the strongest Colonial field we've probably ever seen. It almost is reminiscent of a major with all the top golfers coming back to it. So I don't think this is the one to try to target him, even though he's 50-1. He was 50-1 before the break, but now the competition he's going to be going up against next week is top-notch.
Yeah, as Jeff mentioned, 15 of the top 20 players in the world currently committed, still have till Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern to get in the field if they so choose. Jeff, Matt mentioned a specific player there in Spieth, but I wanted to ask you if there's maybe 1 or 2 specific players that you're really looking at. You're monitoring everything, obviously, as an odds maker, but 1 or 2 specific players that you observe their play before the layoff, and now you want to see how they are after the layoff and see if their form changes. And I guess my example would be Brooks Koepka, who clearly wasn't right with an injury to start the 2020 campaign.
Yeah, there's no doubt Koepka is the one with a lot of question marks to see if this time has given him to heal and be the Koepka of old that we've known. So that's going to be the interesting one. But the one that I brought up before that actually has some tournament play under his belt that I think his power rating is going to keep increasing over the second half of the year is Scotty Scheffler. He's going to be shorter odds next week based on what he did on his time that he played recently. But I think that he has the ability to carry that forward into the majors down the road, and you can find him at some nice prices right now. And I think he's one that has a chance to vault up the odds board rather quickly.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. Scotty Scheffler was my pick to win PGA Tour Rookie of the Year this year and had a couple of good events before the layoff when we stopped play on March the 12th. I want to fast forward a little bit to the PGA Championship, which oddly enough will be the first major of the year this year. Now, I know at golfodds.com you always have a column there, Jeff, for the upcoming odds for the next major on tap. Right now you've got the Masters up there. Ironically, that'll be the last major of the year this year, playing in November. When do you expect to have odds up for the PGA Championship taking place the first week in August at Harding Park in San Francisco?
Well, I actually have odds up for the PGA, the U.S. Open, and the Masters. They're up at the Superbook right now. And on my website, I still have the Masters on the top as the most prominent one. But if you scroll down below that, I actually have the PGA odds available, and I'm going to be adding the U.S. Open to the website. But all 3 are currently available at the Superbook if you're interested right now.
Earlier today, Matt sent me over his picks that he's looking at for the PGA Championship, and we just talked about Jordan Spieth. We've seen Jordan Spieth have tremendous success at Pebble Beach, and you talk about Jason Day, Mark Leishman, some of these guys that play really well on Poa annua greens, Bubba Watson down at Riviera. That's what we're going to get on the putting surface at Harding Park, is a blend between bent grass and Poa annua. Would you expect maybe this is another opportunity for Jordan Spieth to turn things around and what might be somewhat familiar territory for him?
Yeah, I'm still right now I just don't have the trust factor in Jordan Spieth. I'll have to look the other way on him until he can actually show me something and rebound from that, because he has been at the longer odds, 40 to 50-1 for a while now, since he's been in this Spieth slump. But golf is so deep right now. It's so talented, and the influx of new players, they just keep we keep getting these young players that threaten, the Colin Morikawas that are out there now. So it's just tough. I mean, you gotta take advantage of it like Spieth did a couple of years ago, winning as he did, and hold on to that and show that form. And right now we see Rory McIlroy at the top of the odds board with his consistency and his power rating. the other guys somewhat in flux week to week.
You know, I said this about Tiger Woods when he went so long, Jeff, without winning a major or even winning a tournament. I said he's still got the greatness inside him. He's just got to find it. And I kind of feel the same way about Jordan Spieth. At some point, he's going to find it. He's going to start to win again. And I want to be on him at 50-1 when that happens. I don't want to wait until his odds get knocked down to 25-1 after he wins a tournament. But when I look at the PGA in San Francisco, how about some of the California players? I know you're very high on Patrick Cantlay. How about Xander Schauffele? Guys like that, as Brady mentioned, guys who tend to excel on the West Coast. Anything else jump out at you?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Schauffele is going to get the support, as he always does, in the 25-1 range. And I will be on Cantlay. I had Masters tickets on him for this year before it got postponed, and I had some nice prices on him. But I'm going to come back, even though those were refunds, I'm going to come back and play him. You can still find him at 25-1 or higher in all these majors. And he's one of the guys, I know I've talked with you guys before, like when Jason Day won and some of these other golfers, that they're going to win one before the next 25. And I believe that with Cantlay, and especially when you talk about the PGA in California, he's a California guy, that I'm definitely going to be supporting him for the PGA and probably going forward.
He is Jeff Sherman, the Vice President of Risk Management at the Westgate Superbook. Follow him on Twitter at Golf Odds. Jeff, always great to talk to you. It feels like golf's back again, doesn't it?
It does, and I'm really looking forward to next week and then getting that routine. And, they just announced, too, that there's going to be the 2 tournaments in Ohio, the one replacing the John Deere back-to-back weeks at Memorial. So that'll be something to look forward to, too.
Yep, indeed. We'll cover that as well. Wes Reynolds will update us. The John Deere was canceled. They have replaced it with another event. That will happen the first part of July. This is Long Shots. We'll be back with the Tiger Tracker right here on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network. Quick Picks, the real money parlay props game based on daily fantasy scoring, has your favorite NASCAR drivers and head-to-head matchups in this week's races. And VSiN customers can play Quick Picks through its special offer. Get 100% automatic deposit bonus up to $100 when you sign up for a new Quick Picks account. Sign up now at quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus. Then select the ones you think will finish with higher fantasy point totals. Pick between the 3 and 10. Then place your bet between 10 cents and $100. If all of your picks are right, you win. The UFC, PGA, and MLB are coming soon. Available in 27 states and D.C. Must be at least 21 years or older. Go to quickpicks.com/VSiN bonus and start playing Quick Picks now. It is our Tiger Tracker segment. Tiger has not played on tour since the Genesis Open at Riviera Country Club, the final leg of the West Coast swing, all the way back in mid-February. Basically been nursing a sore body ever since then, but we did see him return to action at Medalist Golf Club for the match. Do you have any idea, Wes? I haven't seen anything about when this guy might return to action. We've got, of course, the Colonial coming up, then the RBC Heritage, and then the Travelers Championship in Connecticut. What's your best guess on when we see the big cat?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation in terms of when he's going to return because these aren't events that he usually plays. So we know that Tiger, even when he was very healthy and obviously even more in his prime, was very selective in terms of his events. But now we do have some breaking news, though, from Doug Ferguson, who is the golf writer for the AP, reporting that what was to be the John Deere Classic, and we had on our graphic as an open date, is now going to be July 9th from July 12th. They're going to do a second event in Columbus, Ohio. That's going to be before the Memorial Tournament, which, of course, is Jack Nicklaus's hosted event, both at Muirfield Village. So he was going to play the Memorial anyway, whether he does back-to-back weeks in Columbus or not, who knows. But the two events that I thought he might try to get reps in before that, if he chose one of them, would be the Rocket Mortgage in Detroit or perhaps the RBC Heritage in Hilton Head. But he looked in good form, as Matt said earlier. So I think he does want to get out there and get some reps before we get to major championship play in August.
Yeah, Matt, we saw him hit every fairway, albeit it was a somewhat casual round at Medalist playing against Phil Mickelson and Tom Brady. But did you take anything away from that going forward as far as betting on him or against him?
Yeah, you're not going to find much value in betting Tiger Woods very often, especially after you won the Masters last year. But I think if you can get him in the 20-1 range in some of these tournaments, I might take a shot because I really like the way he looked at Medalist in the match. And, like you said, he was very accurate with his driver. He's one of might be the best iron player in the world. And I thought he looked confident, relaxed. I really liked a lot of what I saw from Tiger Woods, and I think the layoff did him a lot of good.
And he looked a little bit last week kind of like the grinder that we're used to seeing from Tiger Woods in major championship play. I mean, look, the Masters is always going to be his primary best chance to win more majors, but I'm starting to maybe take a look at him perhaps for the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, because that's not a score where guys are going to go really low. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very close to even par to perhaps to be the winning score. And the guy can still grind and make pars and recover from tough shots. He still is very good at recovery. So I'd be looking at him, not just at the Masters, but maybe an outside chance at the U.S. Open, but I would need in that 20 range like you were
maybe
talking
even
about.
The British Open if that comes back someday.
Yeah.
Brady, what do you think? Does Tiger have much of a history at all with Harding Park?
Well, he did win there in 2005. The American Express, I believe it was called at that time. It was a World Golf Championship. And, 2005, Tiger could win anywhere. So I don't know if you can take a whole lot from that. 2020 is a different story for Tiger Woods. As far as the PGA Championship, I've seen his odds anywhere from 14-1 to 22-1. He's a little bit lower in general for the Masters because I think the odds makers know he has a better choice or better chance there. You mentioned 20-1. Is that kind of a threshold for you as well, Wes, if you're going to be on Tiger in a major?
Yeah, and you're never probably going to get that at the Masters, considering he won last year. And books know that they're going to get action on him, especially at the Masters, so they're not going to want to get too overly exposed.
Let's see. I think at William Hill, he's at 12-1 to win the Masters. He is 20-1 at Circa Sports to win the Masters right now. Of course, that will come up in November this year. And then 16-1 at the Westgate. You guys know very well that Jeff Sherman, once it was announced that the Masters was going to take place a lot later in the year, he went down on the Tiger Woods odds because he'll have more time to rest that body that was so injured earlier this year. We'll come back and talk major implications right here on Long Shots on VSiN and VSiN.com, the Sports Betting Network. A course that rates the highest in each factor is Bali High Golf Club, a tropical golf course paradise located on the Las Vegas Strip and in the shadows of some of the most famous hotels in the world. At Bali High, designed by award-winning architects Brian Schmidt and Lee Curley, you will find hundreds of mature palm trees, lagoon-like water features, beautiful bunkering, and a stunning clubhouse home to Sealy Restaurant and an indoor-outdoor patio experience and event space. The course offers Bluetooth technology, caddies upon request, Jell-O shots, model-like beverage cart staff, VIP service from curb to course and back again, high-quality food and beverage, and a par 3 challenge where you can double your money with one swing. The stunning Bali High Golf Club, located in the heart of the Las Vegas Strip, is a golf jackpot, and there are many reasons why. Play today. To learn more about the Bali High experience or reserve your tee time, call 702-450-8000 or visit BaliHighGolfClub.com. That's BaliHai golfclub.com. PGAtour.com. It is the major implications segment, and the next major on the schedule, oddly enough, this year is the PGA Championship. It will be held at Harding Park in San Francisco, south of the city a little bit, really in the Daly City area, close to Olympic Club, San Francisco Golf Club, and also Lake Merced. Back in 2015, we saw Rory McIlroy beat Gary Woodland in the finals of the match play tournament at Harding Park. And Wes, I'll start with you. What are your expectations for this event? Will there be any fans, first and foremost?
Yeah, the PGA moves back to the West Coast for the first time, actually, since 1998 when it was in Sahali, just a little bit east of Seattle. So PGA kind of back in its normal spot in August before they switched the schedule around and really front-loaded the major championships. But I don't think we're going to see I don't know if there's going to be no fans, but I don't think we're going to see a ton of fans. This is in the Bay Area, but keep in mind, you'll be a little bit over a month away from down in Los Angeles when they're supposed to open a new stadium for the Rams, SoFi Stadium, and it's like, you know, are you going to have to open that with no fans? Because, look, we felt that the NFL more than likely, speculating, was going to stay on schedule. So, I mean, I could maybe see them limiting the spectators. I don't want to say there are going to be no fans, but I don't expect you're going to see totally full galleries in Northern California in August.
Matt, I think it's an interesting part of the handicap. You've got the PGA Championship that is now in the first major spot of the season role, where that's always been the Masters. And I think a question for bettors is the layoff going to hurt the players, or is it really just going to be like Augusta, where they're using multiple weeks of preparation for that season's first major?
And I think that the second part of your question is the answer.
Okay.
You know, and we don't know for sure because we've used this phrase so many times this summer. It's all unprecedented, right? What's happening, and I don't think you know exactly how to handicap it, but I don't think the absence of fans is going to affect the players at all. And in fact, I'm looking forward to seeing some tournaments without fans screaming, making stupid comments at every time Tiger hits a drive or something like that. I think it'll be a little bit, let's say, refreshing, I guess, to watch some of these golf tournaments without fans screaming every time a guy hits a putt. It's in the hole, stuff like that. You the man. You get so tired of that stuff at golf tournaments. I think players are going to adjust to it well. The big question is, Brady, when you're trying to handicap this, what's the layoff going to mean? Like you said, the first major of the season is the PGA, not the Masters. Guys are going to gear up and prepare for this major in different ways. I'm going to handicap this one the same way I handicap anything else. I'm not going to change it. I look at course form, current form, horse for the course, that sort of thing. Who's playing well going in? Who might have a positive history on this course? Those will be the things I'll be looking at, as usual, heading into the PGA at Harding Park.
Well, the Masters plays, most of them around town, have all been refunded when the Masters was postponed and moved to November. You had Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, and Adam Scott and Phil Mickelson. Now, for the PGA, I don't know if you have these in pocket yet, but a couple that you're considering: Webb Simpson at 40-1, and the man of the hour here, Jordan Spieth at 50-1.
Yeah, I said this previously. I don't want to be late to the party on Spieth. At some point, and I felt this way about Tiger for years, even though, we mocked him and laughed at his form for a while, is he's still got that greatness inside of him. And I think Jordan Spieth has still got it somewhere. You just have to find it. Sometimes players get lost, teams get lost. And when they're found, you can hit a big ticket. When Jordan Spieth hits at 50-1, I want to have that ticket in my pocket. I don't want to wait until he's 25-1 after he wins a tournament. You always try to get ahead of the curve as a bettor. Webb Simpson, I know you, Brady, you're a Northern California guy. He won at the Olympic Club in San Francisco in 2012. That was the U.S. Open. Jordan Spieth actually won at Chambers Bay in the U.S. Open in 2015. He's had a positive history on the West Coast as well. Those guys, if I'm going to make a bet this far out from the PGA, it's going to be something at pretty big odds, 30-1 or bigger. And I got Webb Simpson right now at 40-1, Jordan Spieth at 50-1. And those were at the Circa Sportsbook. I looked up Circa and the Westgate Superbook. Both have numbers up on these. And I did play those two so far for the PGA. But when I add plays, it's going to be closer to the tournament once we see these guys, Brady, on the course here the next couple months.
Wes, any Masters plays still in play for you, or were they all refunded?
They were all refunded. A couple of them I'm probably going to rebet, though. I mean, depending on form and if a player has an injury. But I'm probably going to rebet Jon Rahm at the Masters just because I think I liked how he played on the course. Same with Patrick Cantlay last year. With Adam Scott's a little bit interesting because he's taking time off because of the pandemic. So he is not getting right back out there and playing. And he made that decision. A couple of the other Europeans, like Westwood, like Eddie Pepperell, they're staying over in Europe for that European swing that starts in late July. But in terms of the PGA, getting back to what Matt was talking about, I think both you and I, Brady, landed on a similar player at kind of bigger to medium-sized odds, and that was Paul Casey at 50-1. Paul Casey, quarterfinalist here. Granted, it was a different type of format. It was the match play, the Dell match play event in 2015, but made the quarterfinals, lost to Rory McIlroy, who ended up winning the event. I'm sure Rory's going to be the favorite here when the tournament goes off. But Casey won twice last year. He's been pretty consistent. He's in the top 25, just inside of it in the world. So, look, this is a guy that has a game to win the major, but just has never put it together.
Well, let's keep in mind that he finished second to Phil Mickelson right down the street at Pebble Beach just a year ago. So Casey certainly has the history on the West Coast. Good ball striker, always has been. Like you say, he's got the history here at Harding Park as well. He was a guy that caught my eye. Also, Jason Day at 40-1, who has a tremendous history at Pebble Beach and Torrey Pines. Maybe he can find some success out in San Francisco. We'll come back and wrap up the program with our plays for the Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial Country Club when we return right here on Long Shots. Atop the hills of the Las Vegas Valley sits the picturesque Revere Golf Club, featuring 36 championship holes, a full practice facility, and a 30,000 square foot clubhouse with a stunning view of the Las Vegas Strip. Traversing through a desert and canyon landscape, the Lexington and Concord courses feature lush fairways and perfectly manicured greens with panoramic views from nearly every tee box. Prices range from just $45 to $169 per player, or you can build your perfect day with our rental club or drive and dine package, or play both courses with our signature 36-hole double down package. Go to reveregolf.com and use promo code VSIN to receive 25% off all rates and packages. Again, use promo code VSIN and receive 25% off all rates and packages at reveregolf.com. It is the match play and final segment of the program. The Charles Schwab Challenge at Colonial Country Club is next up. Charles Schwab is the new title sponsor, but this tournament has actually been around, one of the longest running non-major tournaments on tour to be held at the same course. Again, Colonial Country Club, often referred to as Hogan's Alley, as Ben Hogan won here 5 times. The famous tartan plaid jacket going to the winner on Sunday. A shorter course, a lot of dog legs. A lot of the bigger hitters will not be hitting driver all the time on this course. And Wes, it's been a little bit of a birdie fest in the past. We don't have head-to-head matchups out just yet. We do have the futures posted. What's on your mind right now for Colonial?
Yeah, and ironically enough, Colonial usually is played in the last weekend of May around Memorial Day, so it's only played a couple weekends later, despite all the changes and the havoc that has been wreaked on the PGA Tour schedule. It really isn't that much of a difference. The weather should be relatively similar. The course should relatively play the same, and that's why I'm looking a little bit less at some of the top guys, because the field is so loaded this week, where you can get some value on the board of guys that have experience with this course, guys that have seen the sight lines, guys that know where to play it safe, and then where they can go for it. So one guy that immediately caught my eye, and he's somebody I will play once we finalize our futures bets for next week's program, Ryan Palmer at 75-1, a Texas A&M Aggie, has played this course for many years, not just in casual play, but also in tournament play. So looking at guys like him, looking at a guy like a former winner, Kevin Kisner, who plays very well on these kind of short, just a little bit over 7,000-yard type par 70s. But you also, if you look at the top of the board, John Rahm and Brooks Koepka, who will probably be in the top 5 to 6 odds on the board in terms of favoritism, both have runner-up finishes here within the last 3 years. So they'll take some action. Rory McIlroy is going to be the tournament favorite. He always gets bet no matter where he is. This is actually the first time he's playing Colonial, so he usually doesn't play this event. But, yeah, you want to look at some guys that I think when you get to the form who have played this event multiple times, pretty much year by year, and then look at some of the Texas players. We mentioned one earlier, Scotty Scheffler, who's going to start to see a lot of action. So those guys, and also Jordan Spieth. So those hometown guys or those home area guys in the Lone Star State, definitely look at them for this event.
As usual, Wes with some pretty good recommendations there. Wes, do you have a tartan plaid jacket in your closet?
I do not.
No?
I need to get a green jacket like Brady has so we can all have green jackets for our Masters show in November. But I do not have a tartan plaid jacket. I would like to have one, though.
Well, for the Colonial, I'm going to look at Tony Finau, a guy who played really well on this course a year ago. Finau has a tough time finding the winner's circle.
He sure does.
And Brady, I think you and I each won against him in a playoff this year in Phoenix, right?
Yeah, I had Webb Simpson that day, Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, we both had Webb Simpson. We were fortunate that Webb knocked off Finau in a playoff. Finau last year, a 64 right out of the gate in this tournament, then followed that up 68, 71, 68. He finished second. This is a place where he plays really well. I thought the Ryan Palmer recommendation was one you have to keep an eye on. Palmer 68, 69, 68, 69 last year at Colonial. So I'll be looking at Palmer and Finau in addition to Jordan Spieth, who, yeah, I've called the guy a clown and a head case a lot the past couple of years, but at some point you find value on a player of this caliber. And when I don't know what the odds are going to be on Spieth next week in Fort Worth, but in the PGA, they're 50-1. If I can find Spieth in the 40-1 neighborhood, I don't think that's likely next week, but whatever. Nobody really wants to bet this guy at this point. Jeff Sherman just scoffed at him, at the top of our show today. So Spieth on this track that he knows well in his backyard, I think you never know what's going to happen after a layoff like this. A guy might find his game. He might find himself. And if that happens, I want to hit a big ticket on Jordan Spieth. But, Wes mentioned some players I'll be interested in as well.
Well, I don't know if you can get a much better situation than Jordan Spieth at 50-1 here, and that's what I'm seeing. I believe these are from Caesars Sportsbook. Jordan Spieth at 50-1. Also, Kevin Na at 50-1, who's a player who's had a lot of success here. Spieth has played here a number of times. I believe double-digit number of appearances here at Colonial Country Club and had a lot of top 10 finishes. Matt, you mentioned the top 10 finish last year. I also think John Rahm is something to look at, Wes. I'm seeing 12-1, which is not such a bad number for one of the best players in the world. He's played here 3 times, has 2 top 5 finishes. Also, Finau is a guy I looked at. He's in the neighborhood of 33 or 34-1. Mm-hmm. It's just hard to bet on Finau, like you say, Matt, because you just don't know if the guy can get past whatever it's needing to shake right now and get to the winner's circle. And that may have messed him up a little bit. He's probably benefiting from the layoff after trying to deal with that, kind of blowing that lead at the Phoenix Open to Simpson. Some of the guys a little longer on the board that I looked at, Danny Lee has played here a number of times at 125-1. Russell Knox is another short hitter, ball striker guy at 125-1 that's had success here.
Russell Knox, by the way, tied for 8th last year with Spieth.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Good history here indeed. And Emiliano Grillo, also a great ball striker guy here that's had a top 10 finish at 125-1. I think the tough part is, Wes, some of these guys, Danny Lee, Russell Knox, Emiliano Grillo, these guys are very good players, but it's when the field is much more diluted. We've got some of the best players in the world here this week.
And Brady, you must have been reading my mind because Danny Lee was another one, if you came back to me, that I was going to mention. Danny Lee is one of the players that does live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So looking at guys, that have really played these courses and really have that experience, a Sung Kang, a Siwoo Kim, for example. Bryson DeChambeau, also in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So look and make sure that they're committed for the field come Friday afternoon. But
it was interesting. Wes DeChambeau missed the cut in this tournament last year.
He did.
I think he's missed it a couple times.
He did, but he was a guy that I'm wondering how this is going to affect him in terms of the layoff, because he was, I think, peaking at the right time. He had not won yet in the calendar year, but he's been hitting it longer. All his adjustments in his swing have really paid off in terms of distance, and he's really been hitting it better. And I actually was about to add him for the Masters before the Players' Championship was halted after round one. So DeChambeau is a guy that I'm going to be interested to see if he can keep that form, because I think he was peaking at the right time.
John Rahm also missed a cut in this tournament last year, Brady.
Really?
And
so 2 top 5s and a missed cut.
Is Caesars the only book right now that has numbers up on the Colonial? Because I think they are. I know Jeff Sherman hasn't put them up yet at Westgate. So if that number on Spieth at 50-1, I think that's the absolute best you're going to get.
Nick, did you say, is there another book, or Caesars is the only one? Yep, Caesars is the only one that currently has the Colonial odds up. I think they came out yesterday. That would be Monday, June the 1st, when they were posted there at Caesars. And we'll see. I imagine they'll be bet into here pretty soon, especially that Spieth at 50-1. We'll come back to it next week and see if the odds have changed. Zach Johnson is another interesting one, Wes. Who knows how he's going to play after the layoff? He hasn't been in great form as of late. It's probably been a year and a half since we've seen him play really well. He did have a good stretch about a year and a half or 2 years ago, if I recall, where he made a number of cuts in a row. But he's played Colonial a number of times. He's all the way at 150-1. And you mentioned Kevin Kistner, Russell Knox. Johnson is exactly that type of player.
Yeah, he is. Still a good ball striker. He's made some caddy changes. Not a guy that's going to hit it long, but in terms of course knowledge, he's going to know this as much as anybody, because he's pretty much a year-to-year player at Colonial. And then another one that kind of caught my eye, a couple-time runner-up here, Jason Duffner, who kind of hit or miss lately over the last couple years, but some weeks he kind of sneaks up on you and gets on these leaderboards, because you don't, I think, in this event want to necessarily go all chalk. And I agree with Jeff Sherman that you're going with course form before you're going, I think, with recent form, because quite frankly, we don't have much recent form.
If you look at players that have won here repeatedly in the past, Kenny Perry had great success here. Mickelson has won here before. And I mentioned this course takes the driver out of the hands of a lot of these guys. You're going to see a lot of these big hitters try and cut the corners of the dog legs, like Tony Finau. Tony Finau hits it a mile, and he might take a driver out and try and cut some of these corners. That's what some of the players that are big hitters that have had success here in the past will do. So that's another type of player to look at in your handicap this week, and Tony Finau is a perfect example.
Yeah, Finau's the guy I'll probably bet in this tournament. Even though, like I said, he has trouble winning, getting over the hump. I think the value's there, and that's what you got to look for a lot of times. And I have a hard time betting any player better than 15-1 odds in a tournament like this. I think you have to look at the longer odds players, and you and Wes both mentioned a couple long shots.
How about Dustin Johnson at 25-1? DJ doesn't play here a whole lot, but Wes, he's a guy that oftentimes will come out of the gate hot to begin a season or what have you. 25-1, a big number on DJ.
That's interesting, Wes. I'll just throw this at you quickly. I don't recall the last time we saw 25-1 on DJ, and that's not a guy I ever like to bet.
Yeah, and DJ, this is first time here, I believe, in like 6 years. We mentioned Rory has never played here, so you got a really stacked field. DJ, of the top 5 players, has been in okay form. He does have a runner-up in Saudi Arabia. He's got 3 top 10s, but Koepka is going to be interesting, too. You're seeing him in the mid-30 range here.
That's going to do it for the Welcome Back edition of Long Shots. We will be back next Tuesday to preview the Charles Schwab Challenge, and we'll bring in our friend, professional handicapper Paul Stone, a frequent guest here on VSiN. We'll talk to you next week on Long Shots right here on VSiN and VSiN.com, the sports betting network.